Hey everybody, it's time for another episode of NHL Remember Him. This is episode number 6 of the series, and I'm breaking one of my own rules here for this one. I said it when I started doing this that I would only do players with at least 500 games in the NHL. Well, this player did not reach 500 games in the NHL. However, for a short period of time, only a couple years, he was a pretty big name and not necessarily a household name, but someone that hockey fans would certainly remember. So I'm breaking the rule for this one and giving it to him. Episode number 6 is Dave Steckel. Obviously, Steckel is most known for his time with the Washington Capitals, and he had a very, very good career. Short time with the Washington Capitals, but he was a very well-known player for a couple of seasons. Steckel played 425 games in the NHL, so did not get to the 500-game mark. He scored 33 goals and 46 assists for 79 points. And I have his face-off percentage over here because that is one of the main reasons that he was known, was how good he was in the face-off dot. His regular season career average in the face-off circle was 58.3%. He was incredible at face-offs, and that made him extremely valuable as a fourth-line center. On top of those regular season numbers, Steckel played 31 career playoff games. He scored 5 goals and 4 assists for 9 points in those games. And he had a face-off percentage in the playoffs of 53.3%, so well over 50% in the playoffs as well as the regular season. Steckel was a fourth-line center, and never anything more than that. He was a career fourth-liner, but he really became a well-known player with the Washington Capitals. He had a few great seasons with Washington as a fourth-liner, and for a period of time, he was widely regarded as one of, if not the best fourth-liners in the NHL. And that's why he is getting a video in this, because he is a guy that many of you will probably remember. He played with Washington from 2005 to 2011, although he really didn't make it into the NHL full-time until 2007. Then he played a very short time in 2011 with New Jersey. Then he signed with Toronto and played about a year and a half with Toronto between 2011 and 2013. And then he played a few games with Anaheim between 2013 and 2014. I think only like 20-something games with them, and then he was out of the league. So his career really fell off very quickly after he left Washington. But for a 2 or 3 year stretch, maybe even 4-year stretch with the Capitals, Steckel was a very well-known name. He was someone who was consistently talked about around the league. He was talked about by the national media. NBC here in the U.S. talked a lot about him. Whenever Washington was on NBC, Pierre Maguire used to talk about Steckel all the time. He was a pretty well-known guy because he was such a good fourth-liner. And because of his face-off ability that made him so valuable. He had a little bit of a scoring touch. I mean, he did score 33 goals, so it's not like he couldn't score, but he was never a big scorer. He was known for his face-off ability, killing penalties, and his ability to grind along the wall. Steckel he's a big guy. He's like he was 6'6", 215 as his playing size. He was a big dude. Never overly physical. He wasn't a fighter. He very rarely dropped the gloves. I think only a couple of times in his whole career. But he was willing to go to the dirty areas. He was willing to go to the front of the net. He would grind along the wall. He was a great penalty killer. And obviously his face-off abilities he was one of the best face-off men in the league. So it made him extremely valuable as a fourth-line center, and for a few years in Washington, he was one of, if not the best fourth-liner in the league. He really broke out in 2007, 2008. I think he had 12 points that year. That was really his first full season in the NHL, and he really established himself as a quality fourth-liner. Then in 2008, 2009, all of these are with Washington. He had his best year in the NHL. He had 19 points that season as a fourth-line center. And I believe his face-off percentage was upwards of 57, 58% that year. He was really, really good. And he did pretty much the same thing again in 2009, 2010, where he had 16 points, and his face-off percentage again was up near 60%. So those were really his glory days in the league, and those were the times, those were the years when he was getting really talked about around the league by pretty much everybody, and he was a well-known player as a fourth liner. After that, things started to go downhill. He played again for another season with Washington, or part of a season. Then he got traded to New Jersey. He wasn't bad in New Jersey, but was just there for a very short time. Then once he went to Toronto, things just weren't the same. He didn't produce offensively as well as he did in Washington. He wasn't valued in the lineup as much as he was in Washington. And, his career started to go down. Then he went to Anaheim, where he barely even played, and he was quickly out of the league. So it wasn't a long career for Dave Steckel, but the highs for him in that, 3-year stretch from 2007 to 2010 were really high. And he was a highly regarded player as a fourth liner during that time with Washington. He was kind of Jay Beagle before Jay Beagle. That, great fourth line center, great penalty killer, great in the face-off dot, really, really valuable bottom six guy. Steckel was Jay Beagle before Jay Beagle. And Washington's found a number of those guys throughout their history who have been really good fourth liners. If you remember, Steckel was the guy who collided with Sidney Crosby in the 2011 Winter Classic, I think it was. I forget the year, but when Crosby got concussed in the Winter Classic, it was Dave Steckel who collided with him that caused that concussion. It was an accidental play. It wasn't malicious. They just happened to not be looking, and they collided into each other. And Crosby, that was one of the concussions that really messed Crosby up. He missed a long time after that. That was a really damaging concussion for him. So that's another reason where another thing that really Steckel is kind of known for, unfortunately, is his concussing of Sidney Crosby. So if some of you might know him because of that. But overall, Steckel, not a very long noteworthy career, but for a few years in there, he was a very noteworthy player, one of the best fourth liners in the league. Had a really, really important guy on those Capitals teams. Great face-off guy, great penalty killer, great fourth-line center, and certainly a guy that I remember, and certainly a guy that most of you will probably remember, unless you're really young. But if you're around my age or older, you would probably definitely remember Dave Steckel. So that is NHL Remember Him, episode number 6. Dave Steckel, best known as a Washington Capital, had a really good few-year stretch there with the Capitals as a fourth-line center. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media, check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support this channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.